Good evening, good morning. We are continuing artist talk, and briefly I'll update you on what's going on in this beautiful world. You know that we live in challenging times. Besides all catastrophes, virus attacks happening, our possibilities to change the world and people's lives for the better are growing. Our passion for exploring unknown, learning more, discovering new countries, cultures, and art are worth to be known and seen. During my conversations with great artists all over the globe, I realized that we have one mission in common: to change the world and people for the better. And I wish every artist shares his and her artwork and mission behind it. That's why I'm here to talk today with a new, very talented artist. His name is Scott Listfield, an American artist based in Los Angeles. Basically, the guy who paints astronauts and sometimes dinosaurs. That's how he introduces himself. His art is about a lonely astronaut exploring the present, but this present seems to be an abandoned place full of pop iconic symbols we can't imagine our life without. Modern life, impossible. So let's talk to Scott. We'll connect to him now and find out about his art universe, about his life, about his upcoming shows, and whatever you want to ask him. So I'm trying to connect to Scott. I'll send him a request. Be with us in a couple of moments. Yes, you, Scott.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, the connection looks good.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, so good to have you. Thank you for joining my live session. I
Of
can see
course.
you're probably in your studio, or tell us
Yep, I'm
where
here in
are
my
you?
studio, just me and my dog and my paintings.
Where is your dog?
Oh, she's sort of taking a nap on the other side of the camera here.
Oh, maybe later you'll show us your
Sure, sure,
dog
I'll rouse her.
and your art and
hmm
around your studio.
hmm
So I assume you are now in Los Angeles. That's where your home is.
Yeah, I lived in Boston and grew up in Boston for a long time, but I relocated to Los Angeles about 2 years ago. So I've been here for about 2 years, although the last 5 or 6 months doesn't feel like it counts really.
So tell me about your lockdown experience and how did you spend that time? From Instagram posts, I've learned that you had a show, This is America exhibition, which was transferred from offline format to online format, which
Mhm.
has opened in May. So tell us about that.
Sure, yeah. So I've been, in a lot of ways, my quarantine life hasn't been that much different than my normal life. I mean, I spend most of my time in my studio anyways. But having a really big show in the middle of it was, I mean, to put this in some context, people are sick, people are dying, people have lost their livelihood. So, I don't want to complain about anything that I'm going through, but it has been strange as an artist to work on this body of work that you want to get out in the world, and then have the world not be able to see it in the way that you expected them to. So the show ended up being, it ended up being surprisingly timely. The topics that I painted about. I had the show mostly finished by the time COVID happened, but all of a sudden the show felt very much like it was about COVID. So it ended up being a very timely show, which obviously as an artist is something you want to have happen.
Yeah.
But it was also, it was just, I mean, the whole experience is very strange. The show went really well, all things considered. By most measures, people seemed to really respond to it. The work sold really well. The gallery was happy. I was happy. But it felt, without having that, the opening, without having people be able to really
So
go
strange, right?
yeah, without having people to see it in person, it just felt like a really important part of it was just missing, which was kind of strange. So it was simultaneously one of my most successful shows, but also it just felt like a huge part of it was just gone and missing and not there.
Yeah. Do you think this is our future? This is the new reality?
Oh, what we're living through right now, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, gosh, I certainly hope not.
And
I
everything
think,
becoming more digital, more online, kind of people communicating less and less personal touch and more everything going towards digital and
well, I certainly think part of it certainly will. I think a lot of people, I mean, I think the cat's out of the bag or Pandora's box has been opened in terms of people realizing that if you can work at home, that maybe you should work at home, I mean, and I think, one of the few good things that's happened is connecting to people much like digitally in a much more direct way. I think it's been fantastic. So I think that part of it I actually hope will stay. I do hope that being able to see people in person again is something we can do again soon.
yes. But we are blessed as an artist. We can work from home or from
Yeah.
from city or if we can get there. So that is a very good advantage. So,
Mhm.
but the only disadvantage that we can travel. For me, traveling is so important. It inspires me for my new artworks. As I can see, you also get inspired by American landscapes like Grand Canyon, the Hoover Dam, Hollywood Hills. Have you been to all that places? I'm sure to Hollywood Hills, of course, but to all other places that we can see in your artworks. How do you get inspired?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So obviously I have been to Hollywood. I don't live that far away. A lot of the other places I depict in my paintings, I have not been to. But like you, I get very inspired by traveling. I paint astronauts largely because of an experience I had when I was younger. I spent some time in school studying abroad. I lived in Italy for a little while. I lived in Australia for a little while. And that feeling of being a stranger and sort of wander around exploring a world that I didn't feel comfortable with is what originally inspired my paintings. And so it's been, on top of everything else, this is, again, a minor complaint, but not being able to travel or really go anywhere outside of my home, it's been hard to feel inspired and to get that motivation to paint. I don't know if you feel that way too.
Yeah, that's true. When you're traveling less, when you're sitting in one place, yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to be creative, but nevertheless, but the world has changed and
Mhm.
we need, I think, to adapt and change our way of life with it. But your vision of the world and its possible future has already been so different from the common point of view, thanks to your incredible and futuristic artworks, which has some kind of apocalyptic uh, theme in it.
Mhm.
I've learned from Instagram that some of your followers, they notice that nowadays reality looks so much like your art. So what is your vision of the world, the art, and the future, and what you depict in your artworks? Is it how you see the future, the seeable future?
Yeah, no, another excellent question. So, for a long time, I've been making these paintings that do feel kind of post-apocalyptic, and it was kind of part of my work from an early stage, and I meant them not so much as a prediction of the actual future, but kind of a response to all the movies and TV shows and video games that we all grew up watching that we kind of expected the 21st century to look like an apocalypse to a certain extent. Either an apocalypse or we'd all be, you know, living on the moon or something like that. And I did that partially as sort of a joke because the future we're living in looked, up until 6 months ago, didn't look like that at all. But also as a little bit of a warning that, you know, the future could still end up, you know, looking kind of like Mad Max Fury Road if we're not careful about it. I didn't really intend my paintings to literally depict the future we live in now. And so it was a little bit, you know, obviously at any point, if you're an artist and you're making work that feels extremely timely, that's good, that's great. But not when you've depicted the world as kind of a harsh, empty place and suddenly it feels like that in real life. That's obviously terrible. So I had very mixed emotions about the fact that, you know, when all of this started, I had a lot of people telling me, oh my God, you know, the world looks a lot like one of your paintings. You know,
Yeah.
I depict a lot of very empty city scenes, which people were showing, you know, taking photographs that looked like it. And, so I had mixed feelings about it, and I've been spending a lot of time trying to think about how I want to depict that world in my paintings moving forward, and I don't really know what the answer is to that.
So I hope it's not gonna repeat like in Simpsons, you know, you watch
Yeah,
Simpsons and then after a few decades, it happens. So
yeah.
I hope the scenes from your artworks will not happen anymore. But you never know. So tell us about the astronaut that we see in most of your paintings. Who is that guy and what mission does he carry? I also heard that you have probably a space helmet in your art studio.
I do. I do actually. Well, I don't have it out right now, but I can. You know, if anyone's interested, I could pull it out. Yeah, I do. I've been painting astronauts for a very long time now, and about 5 or 6 years ago, I purchased a helmet off of eBay that I use as a reference. That's
Is it
actually
real?
it is real. It's real. Well, it's not an astronaut exactly. I think it's a Chinese Air Force high altitude testing helmet. So it's very close to what an astronaut helmet looks like, and I use that as the source for all my paintings. But the astronaut in my paintings, I've been painting this astronaut for a long time, and to me, the astronaut kind of I deliberately keep who the astronaut is and what the astronaut is there for a little bit vague or not specific. I want people to look at my paintings and kind of fill in the blanks on their own and try to kind of figure out what the astronaut is doing and what the astronaut is exploring. And you know, I deliberately paint you know, the helmet kind of dark so you can't see who's in there. Because
But
I want
is he from planet Earth or he's from some other universe? Where is he coming
you,
from?
you know, that's a question I want people to try to answer for themselves. I've kind of got my own answers. I do think the astronaut is from Earth, but I also think the astronaut is exploring Earth. And the astronaut is exploring Earth in a way that the things that look kind of familiar to us don't seem that familiar to the astronaut in a way that I hope will make people feel this, like look at them in that same way, like look at things that should feel familiar and go, well, that is actually kind of weird. This world that we just sort of accept as being normal is actually kind of very strange and unusual. And that's kind of part of what I want people to do when they look at my work.
So yeah, to see the future that looks kind of empty with abandoned cars,
Mm-hmm.
the city, the beautiful, breathtaking landscapes, but abandoned,
Mm-hmm.
everything. So also I notice you integrate man-made pop culture elements in your paintings, like famous logos, global corporation names, symbols of consumer society, graffiti adds a special effect too. So you tell us a story, and we can imagine what has been there before in that place, what
Mm-hmm.
happened to your familiar environment. So how do you choose those symbols which you integrate in your paintings? Like, for example, the fallen McDonald's billboard in
Mm-hmm.
the desert or Starbucks cafe in the jungle.
Yeah, so you know, when I started my art career, I was also working full time as a designer, and I spent a long time working as a designer alongside doing my art. And so I thought I sort of saw the world both as an artist and as a designer. Um, and
Graphic
it occurred,
designer?
what's that?
Graphic designer?
Yeah, yeah, I worked as a graphic designer. So I was thinking a lot about logos and about how, you know, I'd walk, you know, I remember one time I was in New York City and I'd walk down a city block and there was a Starbucks, you know, on each corner of every block. And you'd walk another block, there'd be a Starbucks. And it'd be like the same kind of repeating stores. Um, and you know, in America, these big corporate logos just kind of, um, I really thought of them as our contemporary landscape. You know, we're not living in places with you know, where trees and jungles and things like that are the landscape. We're living in places where you know, Pantone colors and McDonald's logos and Starbucks logos are kind of the environment we've created for ourselves. And so I kind of became aware of that as an idea early in my career, and I kept returning to that idea that this landscape we've created, we've sort of formed of the earth is really kind of this collage of logos and colors that's not natural at all, but is very familiar to us. You know, I mean, there's very few people in the world who don't recognize the McDonald's logo. Um, and so I liked having that language that I could kind of deploy as a, you know, I could very easily paint my astronaut into a setting that would have felt like Mars or some planet far, far away. And all I had to do was put a little McDonald's logo somewhere in that, and you go, no, that's Earth. Like that's, yeah, yeah, like that place is familiar. Whatever strange place this is actually Earth. And so I really enjoy using this sort of collage of logos to sort of create some familiarity amidst a very sort of otherwise what might be a very otherworldly feeling planet that I'm depicting.
Sometimes we can also see dinosaurs in your paintings. What is the connection to these creatures? How do they appear in your artworks?
Yeah, so you know, when I first started painting, I came up with this tagline that's, you know, my name is Scott Listfield. I paint astronauts and sometimes dinosaurs, which I thought was kind of, you know, cheeky and fun, and I've kept that for a long time now. I actually don't paint I don't paint dinosaurs that often anymore. The astronaut is sort of the primal figure, but
Yeah.
yeah, you know, they what I realized is that they both come from my sort of two loves as a child. You know, when I was a kid, the first thing I wanted to be when I grew up was an astronaut. And the first thing I loved looking at and drawing and studying were dinosaurs. And so, you know, my work sometimes is very serious and sometimes is very timely, but it's a lot of it goes back to kind of how I felt when I was a kid and trying to capture some of that imagination and freedom to explore and freedom to kind of be creative in an unbounded way that I feel like my childhood kind of encaptures. And so for me, astronauts and dinosaurs kind of wraps that all up together.
I'd love to see your first painting. So when did you start painting? When did it happen? Do you have an artistic background or you're a self-taught artist?
Yeah, so I always loved doing art. When I grew up, I was always doodling. I was always drawing. It was always a passion of mine, but I wasn't really very serious about it. I didn't think of it as a future profession or anything like that until I went off to university when I was what about 18 or 19. And when I got to school, I didn't go to school to study art, but I went to a school that you could take art classes. And I'd never in my life not taken an art class, and the thought of studying, you know, nothing against history or math or you know, literature or anything like that. I like all those things too, but the thought of taking those classes and not also studying art seemed kind of bleak and boring to me. So I signed up for an art class, and it was that first art class at university where things really clicked for me that art could be more than just something I'm interested in. It could be sort of a passion or a career or a life pursuit. And so that was around 20 years ago. that I started painting, and it was right after I got out of school that I painted an astronaut for the first time. It was right around the turn of the millennium, when I was really thinking a lot about how, we're now in the 21st century, and what does that really mean, and what do I want to paint about to be a 21st century painter. And so all my astronaut paintings are up on my website, which is astronautdinosaur.com. And I even have the very first one, even though it's not really very good. It doesn't really look much like my paintings now.
Yeah, I visited your website and your paintings. It's by years, and I think the first ones, I don't want to lie, but I think it was like 80 something, or if I'm not wrong, 80s. Or
You mean 1980s?
your first paintings or 90s? When did you, like on your website?
Oh, the very first one is 1999. That's my very first, yeah.
So not
Yeah.
not that long.
Not quite in the 80s.
Sorry.
I wasn't making paintings. Well, I was making paintings of astronauts when I was 10, but they were more in crayon than in paint.
Yeah, because I remember I clicked on the first year. It was only one painting, so so it was 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So you always painted on oil, or you tried other techniques?
Yeah, so I studied when I studied painting. They taught me how to paint in oil, and I grew. It took me a long time, but I grew used to it. And oil painting is hard, but once you get used to it, I don't know. I really like it, and I'm very much a creature of habit. And for all those years, I'm now a full-time artist, but like I said, for a long time, I had a day job as a designer. And, when you're working full-time and trying to paint on the side, you don't really have time to mess around too much. You kind of got to stick with what you know. So I like painting in oil. It does what I want. The only times I've really experimented with anything else is when I've done a few mural paintings, which I've had to do.
My next question was exactly about murals. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've really been lucky to have. I've only done 3 of them so far. Although I'm hoping to do. I was actually supposed to do one this fall.
Are they all in Los Angeles or?
No. There's one that's in the greater Boston area, one that's in Denver, Colorado, and one that is about an hour north of Los Angeles, is where they are. And I'm hoping I'll do some more this year when it's a little bit easier to travel and see some things. But yeah, I was really happy and excited for the opportunity to do a mural. I think a lot of my favorite artists are doing murals now. I think that's kind of where some of the most exciting things in art.
Did you use spray paints or?
I wish. I don't really know how to spray paint. I've never really learned how to use it. So what I did is I went to a home goods store and bought big gallons of house paint, which is kind of the other alternative for mural painting.
Yeah.
Which is very, very different than oil paint, and was the first time in 15 or 16 years where I felt like I didn't know how to paint at all. It was almost like relearning how to paint from scratch using house paint. And murals obviously are most of my paint. You can see my paintings behind me here. Most of my paintings aren't very big. They're rarely more than 1 to 1.5 meters. Whereas my murals were all 10 to 20 to 30 times bigger than that. So it was very exciting, but it was also really terrifying. Like I said, I'm kind of a creature of habit. I like making paintings sort of in my studio here, and to get out in the real world.
So what
do
is
something.
The average size of your painting?
So most of my paintings, you can see behind me, are anywhere from 10 by 10 inches to 30 by 40 inches, which is, I'm trying to think what that is in centimeters to meters. That's 30 by 40 inches is like a meter by 1 1/3 meters, and 10 by 10 inches is probably 25 centimeters square. So they're kind of like from this big to arm width big, most of them.
Are you planning to try large scale paintings, like 2 meter by, I don't know, by 3 meter? Like very big.
Not at this moment. I think, for one, you can't see my studio. My studio's not huge. I don't have huge
Can
walls.
you maybe show us around a little bit with some of your paintings, some of your artworks?
Yeah, I can try. Well, let's see how this will work here. I'll try to keep this on here. So yeah, this is my studio here. So those are the smaller paintings up there. Let me step back a little bit here. And then these are all for my upcoming show, which we'll probably talk about in a moment. That'll be in New York. And so you can kind of see.
So yes, you have a show coming in September in New York, I think in Spoke Gallery.
Yeah, so my Aaron, I'll show you my dog here real quick. Brody, you wanna wake up here? Nope, she's snoozing.
Ooh, he's sleeping. Cutie.
Yeah, no, she's sleeping. She's not feeling super great. But so yeah, so my next show, this is all work for my next show, which will be at Spoke Art in New York in September 19th, I think it's opening. And I literally just finished yesterday the last piece for it. So I've got 25 paintings that'll be going to New York for my show next month.
Is there going to be any social distancing rules
during
the show?
I think, at this point, everything is still so up in the air, even though it's only 3 weeks away. If possible, I'm sure we'd all love to do some sort of a social distancing opening. I think they're going to have to play that by ear and see how things are going. Because even here in the U.S., even state by state, things are different. Like New York was hit very hard in the early stages, but now is actually doing okay. I'm here in California, which was actually fine in the early stages and now is not doing so great. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of preparing as if it'll be an online only event, and then if people get to see it, people get to see it, and if not, then not.
In case you have branded masks with your artwork.
I do, yeah. No, I do. Some of the partners I work with online started selling masks, so I said, well, that's a great opportunity to, why not print my astronaut with some masks?
So it'll be cool to give a mask as a gesture to your guests during the show.
Yeah, no, that'd be hey, sure. If they want to come out and wear a mask that's got my astronaut on it, I'm all for that.
So and then post it on Instagram. We'll add you extra followers.
Yeah.
Why not?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, some of my artist friends and designer friends, they do it. So they gift the mask with which features their artworks or the design that they do.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think it's, obviously it's important for people to wear masks, and it's, it occurred to me, this is kind of the reality of the world we're living in. It occurred to me the other day, I don't really go out much. I kind of dressed up a little bit today, but I don't need to dress up that much anymore. The mask is kind of the only thing I get to wear now.
Yeah, it's so unusual. I think we already forgot what is it to dress up.
Yeah. Well, the mask is the only thing I get to wear.
Exactly.
So.
But it's good. So also another question about music and your art. So I noticed you create some playlists which match your art. So a particular song goes with some kind of artwork. So how does that work?
Yeah, so when the COVID hit and we were all stuck in quarantine, I kind of, I and everybody else quickly realized that we were all online all the time now, and we were all kind of looking for any sort of entertainment we could get. And so an idea I'd had kicking around in my head for a long time is this idea of soundtracking my paintings. I've been thinking a lot about how my work could be adapted to other mediums. What if my paintings were a TV show, or what if my paintings were a movie? How would that work? And that's something I can't really work on right now with everything shut down. But a big part of that would be this idea of the mood of my paintings and how music could also set sort of a similar mood. And here in my studio while I'm working, I listen to music all the time, and I have songs that kind of either directly inspired a painting or just sort of less directly, just sort of the mood of a song kind of felt similar to me, to a mood that I was setting in my paintings. And so, one of the things I've done is I post some Instagram stories every now and again where I pair up some songs that I like, that I feel like match with my art pretty well. And people responded to it, and it's a fun thing that I kind of hope other people will kind of take up and do. other artists could do the same thing pretty easily, where you say, here's one of my paintings, here's a song that I think kind of
Yeah.
matches with it. It's sort of a fun thing to keep
Oh,
us all
that's very
occupied.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And your public vision, does it really the same? Is it usually the same with your vision? For example, you can see, oh, this painting goes with this Spice Girl song. I saw once you mentioned Spice Girls somewhere that you like them.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. No, I'm a Spice Girls fan, kind of going back. Yeah, no, music does actually play a real inspiration in my work in a more direct way. It appears, bands and songs actually appear in my work. I had a show. My first show in London was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I did all in every one of the paintings. There was a British music act from the '90s that appeared somewhere in there. So the Spice Girls were in one, and Blur was in one, and Oasis was in one, and because that kind of music really inspired me back when I was growing up, and so I love the idea of it appearing in some of my work. Not all the songs appeal to every. Not everyone's a Spice Girls fan like I am, and not everyone would necessarily think of my work going with the Spice Girls. But I kind of, I like playing with that a little bit, and the times I've posted music with my work, people actually do seem to really respond to it, I think.
oh, it's really cool. I like the
Yeah.
idea. So show us which painting are you working on at the moment, and
Sure, yeah. Let me
that'll be lovely to see.
detach you here. Let me see. Like I said, I just last night finished up. Can you see this one okay?
Yep.
This is the very last painting I worked on for my upcoming New York show. So the theme for that show, the show's going to be called Quarantine, which is probably an obvious title. I was kind of struggling with how to make paintings about this time we're all living through without it feeling kind of depressing or dark or even kind of boring, because we're all kind of stuck at home. And so it's my first big show in New York. And so a lot of the scenes take place in New York. And I thought a good metaphor for what we're kind of all going through is this idea that, here, I can show you this one over here. We're kind of living in these cities that suddenly, feel kind of upside down, or that gravity is not really working, or that they're, or that things are sort of tilting at a funny angle and things feel kind of fractured and broken. And so for this one, which is the final one, that's the Chrysler Building, which is obviously a famous building in New York. And I kind of wanted the building to feel kind of real, but to be living in this world that felt almost like a kaleidoscope, where things were just sort of fractured and unreal.
Is it on canvas?
Yep. This is, I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can get around here. Yeah, you can see it's all on canvas. This guy is 16 by 20 inches oil on canvas. And you can actually, let's see if I can get you. This is my palette over here with all the colors still on it. I haven't cleaned it up yet, because I finished kind of late last night. But yeah, this is kind of my working studio. This is what it looks like in my studio here.
But I really wish you try like big painting. I think it'll look amazing.
Yeah. Well, I will. I'd love to at some point. I've done some slightly larger ones, and like I said, I've done bigger murals. For me, it's all about where the painting is going and what the opportunity is. If I have a show in, most of the galleries I show in, they've got some big walls, but there isn't really a reason to make a big painting. I've had a couple shows in museums, and if I start doing more museum shows with bigger walls, I'll probably take the opportunity at that point to make much bigger paintings.
Yeah, exactly. And it has like different effect when you see the big painting. Yeah, of course, not all of them, but to make a few big scale would be, I think, a good idea. Of course, it's very time consuming. I know how oils are.
Yeah. Well, they take a while, and a lot of times I'm very fortunate to have a lot of gallery shows lined up, and so oftentimes I'm kind of on a time crunch trying to figure out, I need to make 20 paintings for this show that's next year, and then I need to make 10 paintings for this show, and so I try to.
How long does it take to make one painting, for example, the one you just showed us?
That one I did pretty quick because I had I had to finish it up. Anywhere from, most of these paintings, anywhere from 2 or 3 days if it's a small one,
That's very
to
quick.
yeah, to a week or two on the bigger ones. I tend to work pretty fast.
That's good. I love artists that work fast.
Yeah, well, all those years where I was working full time and I only had, a small number of hours to paint, really made me focus on being kind of efficient in the studio. And now that I paint full time, I keep the pace pretty quick. Because I don't know if you feel like this. I know a lot of artists feel this way. The first, when you first start working on a painting, it's really fun and exciting, and then eventually you get to this point where you're just sort of like, oh, this is kind of tiring. I want it to be done. Do you feel like that sometimes?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I think we can all kind of relate to that. So I try to spend as much time on that first part as I can, and then get really fast through the part where I just want it to be done. Because then,
Yeah.
if you're not enjoying the painting process, sometimes you can kind of see it in the work.
Yeah.
You want every painting to be kind of fun to work on.
But do you work on a few paintings at the same time, or you like to stick to one painting?
Most of the time, I just have one going at a time. I don't like having paintings hanging around that are unfinished. It just sort of, I just like to have them. I like to be able to check
Because
off the
oils
box.
as a process, it needs some time to dry. So while the first layer is drying, you can start the second painting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Yeah, you got to factor in the dry time into the painting, and even things like the way I work on the paintings. I usually balance my hand like this on the painting, and so I need to make sure where I'm sticking my hand is not full of wet paint, because then I'll just smear it all over the place. So I need to be very methodical about how I get through the painting, so I'm not making a mess as I go.
I like your recent painting that you posted with the bear and the fire. Is it about the wildfires that are sweeping now in California?
Yeah, so that one was out of my last show, which is called This Is America, which is at Think Space here in Los Angeles, which opened in May. And so that show in general was kind of about this moment in time here in the U.S., which, it's an election year here. There's a lot happening politically. There's a lot happening socially. There's a lot happening environmentally here in the country. And I made that painting 4 or 5 months ago, so they were not about the fires that are happening now. But here in California, pretty much every time this year we have fires like that, and they've been getting worse over the last.
Even worse.
Yeah, they've been getting progressively worse over the last 10, 20, 30 years, and so.
You should definitely make a painting about that.
Yeah, well, I wanna make, I do, like talking about the environment in my work is kind of an important part of it. And, these things are kind of catastrophic, and I want to do it in a way that is, brings to light what's happening, but is also kind of respectful. People are losing their homes, people are losing their livelihoods, animals are going extinct from all this. So I do spend a lot of time thinking about the best way to talk about these things.
So let's hope for the better, and we hope your art will bring us some positive, more positivity.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the other side of when
Let's
people
be
have been
more
telling me.
optimistic.
Yeah, people have been telling me that my art looks a little too real now, that I should start painting things,
Exactly.
that are more
It's becoming
fun.
real. Maybe you should start painting something cute and nice and positive and
Yeah.
lively.
So
this becomes a reality.
I know I tried to do that with this current body of work. I was like, I should paint more unicorns and rainbows and happy things and donuts and I tried to do that to a certain extent, but then I ended up painting. I don't know. I ended up circling back to my usual subject matter. I don't know.
Anyways, I wish you good luck with your upcoming show in
Thank you.
September. Keep us posted.
I will. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. This has been great.
Thank you for your time, and have a great day. It's Los Angeles, so it's just the beginning of the day for you.
Yeah, it's still morning here. Yeah, well, thank you very much for talking with me, and have a good day where you are too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.